Dawn of War 4 has been getting some traction once again, and well, today we are going to be taking a look at a really interesting RTS discussion hosted by GameStar with a panel which was pretty interesting actually as it happens. We've got Maxim, who's a content creator and a long-time RTS fan, Maurice, who's basically known for his deep strategy game knowledge, and then Jan Theissen, who's coming in from the developer side, of course, lead game designer at King Art Games. And so if you are even remotely interested in where something like Dawn of War 4 could be heading, this video could be pretty interesting for you. Essentially, I put my German hat on because this discussion was, well, held in German. But I figured for a lot of the English speakers out there, German probably isn't something that's your forte, and so I thought I'd help you guys out and basically summarize and also kind of chime in on the discussion and give you access to what the discussion was all about. Right from the start, they all agree on something pretty important. RTS still offers something that no other genre really does, but it has also been struggling for many years. Maxim kicks things off talking about what got him into RTS in the first place, and interestingly, he focuses less on mechanics and more on story and world building. He brings up Warcraft 3 as a key example, how you actually cared about the characters, not just base building, and that kind of sets the tone for one of the big themes of the whole discussion. RTS used to be really strong at storytelling, and maybe that is something that modern games need to bring back. Maurice, on the other hand, leans much more into the spectacle side of things. For him, RTS is all about large-scale cinematic battles, something that you don't just get in turn-based games more often, or other strategy games at large. But he did also point out a subtle problem. When the most effective strategy ends up being something weird or immersion breaking, it kind of kills that fantasy. And so we're left with this constant tension between playing to win and playing for the experience. Speaking of experience, I would like to know in the comment section below, which is the best RTS experience you've ever had? Maybe it's tied to something, well, maybe a bit emotional. Maybe your older brother, sister, family member, dad, played a game and that's how you got into real-time strategy games. I do love reading about those kind of stories, so let me know in the comment section below, what was your most favourite RTS experience, or did you just get into RTS for the big explosions? And then Jan essentially steps in with the developer perspective, and honestly, it's a bit of a reality check because he explains that RTS is one of the hardest genres to build. Not just because of how many systems are happening all at once, but because you can't really tell if everything works together until very late in development. And balancing is often a nightmare. Players will always find some unexpected strategy that kind of breaks things, and fixing it can often even create more problems elsewhere. One thing he does emphasize a lot though is the difference between single player and multiplayer. According to him, you basically can't treat them the same. In single player, it's about fun and spectacle. You want players to feel powerful, to have those big wow moments, but in multiplayer, everything needs to be pretty fair and balanced, which, well, often means dialing things back. One thing that comes to mind in this particular theme is the presence of Lion L. Johnson in the Space Marine campaign, but of course he won't be in the multiplayer version of the game. Anyway, what's really relevant is when you think about Dawn of War, the series has often leaned more towards cinematic, squad-based battles rather than pure competitive precision. Let's face it, we've never really had a huge flourishing esports scene when it comes to Dawn of War, but what we have had are things like sync kills, some crazy battles, and absolutely cinematic moments in the games. Another really interesting part of the discussion that was held was accessibility. Jan Theissen points out that RTS can be overwhelming, especially for new players. There's just so much happening all at once, but instead of simplifying everything, his approach is more about guiding players, like having systems that react to what you are doing and give you suggestions in real time. Not just a one-time tutorial, but I guess ongoing help. This actually worked pretty well for Age of Empires 4, and I'm pretty excited to see the possibility of it in Dawn of War 4 as well. Maurice then brings up something that feels very real if you've ever been around RTS communities: the players themselves. He basically says that RTS fans can be, well, pretty extremely set in their ways. They can expect certain controls, certain mechanics, sometimes even things that don't really make logical sense anymore. But they are kind of just part of the muscle memory. I have to say, I'm probably guilty of this as well. Sometimes once you've played with something that you just have in your experience for 20 years, you kind of don't want it to change. But anyway, this all creates a challenge. How do you modernize a genre without alienating the people who've been playing it for 20 years? Ultimately, I doubt there's going to be a massive resurgence in RTS with, new players coming into the fold, as it were. I'm not saying it's not possible, I'm just saying that most of the people that will be playing Dawn of War 4 probably will be seasoned RTS players. Not saying necessarily competitively, but the single player guys count also. We also see the tension in some of the examples that they mentioned during the discussion, like how older RTS games are still heavily preferred over newer ones, even when the newer games are technically more advanced. They also talk about esports, and this part is kinda surprisingly blunt. Jan Theissen says that only a relatively small proportion of RTS players actually care about high-level competitive play. Most people are here for the campaigns, co-op, or casual matches. And Maxim goes even further. He basically says esports is risky, expensive, and not something developers should really build their entire game around. We've actually seen some developers kind of fall into this pitfall, particularly Stormgate, Battle Aces, just to name a few RTS titles that have recently just really underperformed. And arguably because of their heavy focus on esports. Now, why is all this relevant? Well, it raises a really important question for Dawn of War 4. Is it going to chase esports, or focus more on delivering a strong overall experience for the majority of players? Keeping things a bit more personal for me, I do actually really enjoy the competitive side of RTS games, but I just wonder, well, how much of it is because there aren't that many great campaigns anymore? I remember growing up with Command & Conquer Red Alert, Age of Empires 2, and I don't know if I've had that campaign experience replicated. Anyway, but what I do want to ask you guys is, well, what do you guys enjoy playing the most? Is it campaigns, co-op, or maybe just casual matches of skirmish? Anyway, then there is the topic of MOBAs, which you can't really avoid when talking about RTS. The guys in the discussion acknowledge that games like League of Legends came directly out of RTS roots, but simplified things. Fewer units, less chaos, more focus. And while that clearly worked in terms of popularity, Maurice makes it very clear that for him, MOBAs just do not replace RTS at all, and he finds them to be fundamentally different experiences. I tend to agree with this. In fact, I barely play MOBAs at all, but I play lots of RTS. How about you guys? Do you think that they are relatively similar genres, or are they pretty different that actually have very different audiences? Anyway, at the end of the discussion, they talk about setting and atmosphere. But before we do go there, just before we do, I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it so far, and also if you're interested in future Dawn of War 4 updates and you enjoy the content on the channel, make sure you are subscribed. Anyway, going back to setting and atmosphere, Maxim points out that a strong IP, intellectual property, or I guess setting if you like, can help bring in new players, which obviously is very relevant for something like Warhammer. There's no doubt in my mind that the Warhammer franchise is becoming incredibly popular, with games like Space Marine 2 and even TV show series in the pipeline in the works to be made. This all makes the Warhammer franchise have a much wider appeal, and hopefully that's just going to benefit Dawn of War 4. But what he does also warn is that you can't rely on that alone. It still obviously has to be a very good game. And Maurice adds that atmosphere is absolutely central to real-time strategy games. The mechanics matter, sure, but what really sticks with people is how those battles feel. By the end of the conversation, you get a pretty clear picture of the challenge. A modern RTS, and by extension, Dawn of War 4 needs to balance a lot of things at once. It needs strong storytelling, satisfying large-scale battles, systems that help new players get in, and a clear idea of who it's actually for. And maybe the most important takeaway is this: you can't make absolutely everyone happy, so instead of trying to please every type of RTS player, the goal should be to make a game with a clear vision and execute it really well. If Dawn of War 4 can do that, there is definitely a chance it could bring some real energy back to the genre. With all that being said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion, and of course feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, but as always, take care and see you next time.